This morning at 10 o'clock, there's a hearing in a House committee dealing with a proposal to ban certain types of firearms like semi-automatic rifles, pistols, shotguns, and the like. I want to hear from you at some points throughout the rest of the week. We will be highlighting what's discussed at the hearing, but what's expected, at least from a news release that Bob Morgan has put out. They're going to have leading data experts, researchers to testify on policy, and some of the data experts coming from, crime labs or from different types of groups like Chicago Cred or the Pritzker administration's Illinois Department of Human Services. So those are just some of the various voices we expect to hear at the hearing. But what's fascinating is, we have yet to hear, at least in these hearings, from the opponents of this. And you can see that the opponent list is pretty healthy, especially when you consider how many people are filing for witness slips at the website my.il.ga.gov, or rather my.ilga.gov. If you find the hearing here, you'll see that there's only about 3,000 proponents and more than double that in opposition. That's just for this hearing that's happening today. There were tens of thousands of witness slips that were filed for Monday's hearing, and the opponents outweighed the proponents of the bill. But what's going on? Who are we going to hear from eventually? Will those who are in the gun industry, will those who are supporting gun rights in Illinois, are they going to be heard at these committees? Let's talk now with one of those individuals. He is Dan Eldridge. He's with Maxon's Shooter Sports, but also with Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois. Thanks for taking time with us, and let's get right into it. Talk about where you guys are at on this, and are you going to be negotiating at all?
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. No, we're not here to negotiate. The data experts, the testimony, it doesn't matter. This is simply unconstitutional. In a post-Bruin world, you just simply are not allowed to do this kind of stuff anymore.
Well, and talk a bit more about that if you can. I mean, can you just do away with civil rights in the U.S. Constitution's Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment? If you say, here's data that supports this particular effort, is that ever reason to go after individuals' civil rights?
Nope. And this is a direct assault on there is no question about that. You just simply won't be part of any kind of negotiation.
Dan Eldridge with us on WMA Lines with Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois. I do kind of want to get your reaction as to somebody who is in the industry of selling firearms as to what's driving some of those FBI background check statistics for Illinois. But if you could just express more of where you're at on this with the statement released in the letter that you sent legislative leaders yesterday from the Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois about the idea of gun owners being targeted here because of some instances that, as you say in the letter, are from psychopaths.
Right. Well, saying when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I guess when you're an investigator, every tragedy looks like an opportunity under laws. Well, not this time. The laws were there in Highland Park. Illinois has a red flag law. Highland Park has an assault weapons ban. Twice the Highland Park police did their job, issued a clear and present danger letter to the ISP when the offender made threats of violence and had weapons removed from his home. Yet his father signed off on his getting a FOID card, and the ISP issued one. So where's the accountability for that? Why are law-abiding gun owners culpable for the depraved criminality of a deranged individual?
Dan Eldridge with Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois here with Springfield's Morning News. What are the next steps? Because it looks like State Representative Bob Morgan is gearing up to get this passed before January 10th. Would that mean that, potentially a million plus people out there who may have magazines that hold more than 10 rounds are going to be, felons overnight?
Felons if you have two. You'll only catch a misdemeanor if you have just one, but who has just one magazine? This bill, as written, has an immediate effective date. So as soon as, if it passes in its current form, passes the House, passes the Senate, concurrence, and the governor signs it, it has an immediate effective date, at least for the magazines. And so, yes, millions and millions of Illinois residents suddenly are criminals for something that they formerly possessed lawfully, committed no crimes with, but they're now felons.
Dan, what's next now if this thing does pass? I mean, we've heard about lawsuits. Is it going to be a joint effort with, the State Rifle Association and FFIL, or is it going to be kind of separate lawsuits? How do you anticipate this playing out?
We are building a coalition with some of the top Second Amendment advocacy groups in the country. We plan on going immediately to federal court to challenge this on three fronts: the 18 to 21 restrictions, the magazines, and these so-called assault weapons. So three different ways to attack this because they are different. And we, again, will go directly to federal court, seek immediate injunctive relief, temporary restraining order, pending the outcome of the litigation. And I expect that post-Bruen, we will win.
And you're anticipating this would go all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Probably not. After Bruen, the Supreme Court granted cert, vacated, and remanded back down to the lower courts. California's 10-round mag limit, New Jersey's 10-round mag limit, Maryland's so-called assault weapon ban, all those got sent back down to the lower courts with the instructions to try again after reading the Bruen decisions. So I expect that we will have decisions on those very, very soon, and they won't look particularly good for this Illinois act if it passes.
Dan Eldridge, Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois. Something else I wanted to get your take on, and that is the state of Illinois seeming to, again, year after year after year after year, at least as far back as I went, a good 5-6 years, we continue to have the most NCIS federal firearm background checks. What's that all about? That does not equate to a record number of Illinoisans buying guns. I'm sure there's a lot of Illinoisans buying guns because of uncertainty from a variety of things, including this proposed gun ban. But why do we have that many background checks in Illinois?
That's actually just a technical detail of how the FOID cards are background checked. So a lot of those are concealed carry and FOID card pings at the NICS database. When you adjust the numbers for those, which the National Shooting Sports Foundation does, you get a much more accurate number. But your conclusion is still correct. We are seeing record numbers of Illinoisans apply for FOID cards. We continue to grow the ranks of concealed carriers, and the sales of firearms and training continue to sustain levels not seen pre-pandemic.
So obviously a lot of things going to be happening here. We'll keep a close eye on what's happening and moving forward. I hope we can connect with you as we watch this thing unfold. Dan Eldridge, he is with Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois. He's also owner of Maxon Shooters Supply and Displays. Thanks so much for taking time with us today.
Thank you, Greg.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.